to Career UpRising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everyone, you are listening to episode 92, Focus on the Bigger Picture with Alex Petrov. Hey everyone, welcome to March. This is going to be my first episode coming out in the month of March, and we're in full swing here in 2021. And actually we have an extra show this month. We have 3 Mondays. So that means I'll be giving you guys 3 shows this month, which I'm really, really excited about. And today, in particular, I have a guest, which I love doing. I love bringing former clients onto the show. So my friend and former client, Alex, is on the show, and he's going to chat with us in just a couple of minutes about his journey, his job search and career journey. And I think there's going to be a lot of gems and a lot of good lessons for everyone. And I as I've said before, the best way I think for you listeners out there to learn how to make changes in your own life and in your own job is to hear real stories about clients who've gone through what you are going through. So I always like to bring fresh perspectives and bring clients who've been through what you're going through onto the show. So we're going to do that today. And Alex and I actually met 4 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long since we started working together. My business was still pretty young and pretty fresh at that time. And he has been so wonderful and really stayed engaged in my podcast and in my work throughout that time. And I'm so grateful for that and grateful for all of the listeners out there because I love to look at my stats, and the show has just been really growing actually a lot. The numbers have been pretty strong since I came back in December. So that makes me really happy to know that people are listening, people like Alex and people like you. So what I want to do is bring him on in a moment and have him just share his story and his journey in a way that only he can tell. And I think there's going to be a lot of lessons in this. Okay. All right. So welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, Alex.
Hi, Lorraine.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I just finished up a work meeting and it went a little longer than I wanted, but got all set up here for, yeah.
Yeah, we're set up. We're ready to go. No problem. We're all kind of working from home and juggling different things,
Exactly.
That's so definitely. Well, why don't you just start out and give our listeners a little bit of background about you, whatever you want to share. Tell them about what line of work you're in and just a little bit about your career journey and kind of what's kind of brought you to where you're at today.
That sounds good. I wanted to start by listing, just for people's reference, because I'm going to reference some of these throughout the podcast, some of the old episodes that I think are really important. 43, 37, and 38 is a double feature. We got 34, 33, number 4, and number 17. And there's a bunch of other ones. Maybe you and I, maybe we'll put it in the description or something, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
But I listed those because there's a combination of there's really kind of 2 parts to this. Like there's the technical side and there's the emotional, spiritual, psychological, which sometimes we call that woo-woo affectionately, right? And
Yeah.
it's the technical stuff that we all are mostly familiar about, and that's actually what brought me to seek you out in the first place. I need a resume. Or, we also ask about credentials, and we ask about, we all know we all know that college can be good for getting a job and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of people underestimate the other aspects, psychological, emotional. So if I just want to go back kind of through I'm going to start out the technical side. I have 20 years of experience as a technician. I started as a teenager. I'm 34 now, so you can just do the math. My first mechanic job was when I was I think I just turned 15. So, I had a lot of experience there. I have engineering experience, 6 years. I got 3 college degrees, and just on paper that should be enough to get a job. But we all know that it's not really enough. If a college degree was all it took to get a job, then you wouldn't have this company, you know, because we'd all know, oh, we'll just go to college and get a degree. But there's so many people that have degrees and they have experience, and they're just not able to get a decent job or keep a job. And so I'm, how do I say this? Okay, so um, I started off as a teenager working. Went to community college right after high school. It took a long time to get through that. I was working part time. Excuse me, I wasn't working full time, going to school part time. It took me 14 years to get my first bachelor's degree, and the first 10 of that was to get my associate's degree. Um, I had one job that was 7 years, and at the end of it, I realized how much time I'd wasted in that job. Fortunately, I did get hired. I got laid off from that job, and I did get hired within just a few months into a really good internship, and this was in 2013. I know you have a podcast about why not to stay in a job for too long. You said change job every
Mm-hmm.
five
Mm-hmm.
years. That was number 25, and
Mm-hmm.
that sounds kind of counterintuitive to somebody because you could be at the same company for 10 years, but during that time you've changed jobs, you've done different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent all this time at this company, and I kind of changed a little bit, but for the most part I was kind of stuck in the same comfortable place. And then when they didn't need me anymore, it was like almost a surprise, but I learned, hey, maybe that was for my own benefit. And here's a funny career story. So when you're unemployed in the state of Maryland, you have to they have these workshops that you have to go to. Like it's mandatory. And in that
Mm-hmm.
workshop, there was a recruiter, and she had a list, and she was asking people, so is anybody have a plumbing certificate? And like a couple guys stand up, hey, we got a job for you. Does anybody have truck, a CDL license? Unless someone stands up, oh, we have a job for you. Oh, here's a weird one. Does anybody have does anybody have an aerospace degree? And she made this funny face, and I stood up. I was like, yeah, I just got my associates in aerospace, and so I got this internship. And it was kind of funny because it's just not really anything you can do with an associates in aerospace. But it took me 13 years to, no, excuse me, it took me 10 years to get it. There was a lot of math. There was like 5 levels of advanced math. There was like all kinds of physics and engineering and the thermodynamics, all kinds of stuff that like doesn't translate to like most jobs. And I had this internship that paid 13 an hour, which felt great at the time. But when it was over, they wanted to keep me on, but they wouldn't offer me more. Like I couldn't even get them to give me an extra dollar an hour, which is kind of funny because right now everybody wants 15, and I was like, that was 13. I couldn't get them to give me 14 for aerospace job. So I said, you know what, I
Mm-hmm.
need to finish my degree, and that was when I determined like I am going to finish my degree now. It took me, you know, all this time. I didn't have any debt. It took me all that time to get the degree, and I said, I'm just going to get it done. And I transferred to a school. I finished my 2-year degree. I transferred to another school that was like more than twice the cost. I think it was 4 times the cost actually. And I went ahead and got the student loan. Forget it. I got to get this over with. So, and then those 2 years, it actually took a little bit longer than that, but it took 2 years to get a job from that point. It took me a little longer to get the degree. I got my first engineering job right before I graduated, and and I think I met you right after I got my degree. So I had been working at this
Mm-hmm.
engineering job for a brief period of time, and it was not. There were a lot of things that were great about it, but there were a lot of things that were not great about it, and that's when I linked up with you around 2017. So I guess I'd been at that job for a little over maybe a year and a half or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like, hey, I need something more. I actually had a career counselor through the school. It was free, and she helped me get that first engineering job. And what she put me on to was showing me that. So she's great at finding internships. That was her specialty. She worked for the school to help students get internships. And I had applied for over 100 jobs at NASA, internships, and they went nowhere. I didn't even get feedback. And she said, "You know what? You're applying for the wrong jobs. You need to apply for grown-up jobs," because I had all this technical
Grown up
experience.
jobs. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh-huh.
at this point, I mean, this was 2015. So at this point, I already had like 14 years of technical experience. So, I needed a grown-up job. And so the first, I won't say the first, but it was pretty much like almost immediately after applying for this job, it was like, here you go, 70K. Oh wow, and I'm a college student. I've been living off of frozen broccoli for the last 10 years, and now 70K, like unbelievable. So
Wow.
I
Right.
yeah, so and then when I seeked you out, it was like time for a grown up career counselor.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, what I really hear you saying, and also in our previous conversations, is, careers are not perfect and linear, right? It sounds like you've really kind of had some ups and downs, and maybe
Oh
some
yeah,
side turns, and you go forwards and you go backwards, and you have setbacks along the way, and I think it was Sheryl Sandberg who said careers are not a straight line; they're a jungle gym, which I
right.
really like, and I feel like I hear a little bit of that in your story that I know a lot of people can relate to. And you and I were talking in a previous conversation about how you come in for one thing, you come in to coaching and you think I need a new resume or a new LinkedIn profile. And sure, maybe you do. But one thing that you learned was that you really needed to kind of focus on the bigger picture, which is why I kind of titled that this episode, because I loved that you had that perspective that, the job search and the career change is really pretty holistic. It's a whole process, and it's not compartmentalized into, oh, I just need a better resume. I mean, there's maybe a few clients out there like that, but most people really need to look at the whole process, and they need to look at themselves as a whole as well. So there's emotional aspects, there's your mental and your mindset, there's your time, there's sometimes making a financial investment. There's just a lot of parts to it. So I loved that you brought that up. So can you maybe expand on that a little bit? What did you come into kind of our relationship when you came in needing what? And then what did you walk out with? What did you discover that you actually needed to learn or needed to focus on?
Lorraine, the discovery process took about 3 years. So in 2017 was
Mm,
the first time I came in for my resume. It was 2019 that I started my job, and then it was 2020 that I actually got hired on as a federal employee. So, um, if I okay, number four, setting attention for your job search, right?
mm-hmm.
When I heard that, so that you started this podcast in 2018, that's kind of when I needed it. So this is I can get really woo woo about it, but I won't. Maybe I'll try to take it easy. And you have several podcasts where you talk about giving yourself permission, feeling worthy. That was six, seven, and six. You have others
Yeah.
that are kind of on that same kind of theme of like I don't want to call it self-esteem, self-worth,
Hmm.
self-worth,
Yeah.
and people, we limit ourselves. There's even a book, Release Your Brakes. I forgot who wrote it. There's also another, um, Stephen Covey talks about the emotional bank
Mm-hmm.
account, right? And most of us are overdrawn, right? It's like oftentimes we are our own worst enemies. And I've been many times in my life, things start going well, and then self-sabotage. Like as soon as things start going well, I
Mm-hmm.
start thinking there's no way this is even possible. This can't possibly, you know. And I think most of us, if you think back to being a child and playing on like a jungle gym or something like that, you're doing like a trick or you're balancing. And as soon as you are conscious of it, like, oh, look at me, that's when you fall.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So it gets really deep. I'm trying to think how far do I want to get in on this thing. Um,
I know we could be here all day sometimes when we talk
oh
about our
yeah,
careers and the journey.
the journey. Yeah, if I talk about the hero's journey, like I started off, I came from a poor neighborhood. Believe it or not, even though it's in the DC area, this neighborhood was really dangerous. In the '80s, a lot of violence, a lot of drugs. Gunshots, a lot of
Yeah.
police stuff. Police treat people differently in bad neighborhoods, believe it or not.
Hmm.
And um, and so it was a really bad upbringing. The people that I was surrounded with, I mean, it was like not to try to, you know, not everybody was bad, but I mean, it was just like a kind of place where there's this element, and then you just go a few blocks down the road, and you're in like the richest place in America. And it's just the disparity was so strange. The kids who had a whole different world, but there's blessings associated with it. Like most of the people that I graduated high school with, they graduated college in 2008. That wasn't the best time to be looking for a job,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was working full time. I had a job full time as a technician, and I was working on my degree. And so there are all kinds of benefits associated with that. I took on a lot of side jobs and making side money, fixing cars, and that people pay a lot of money to fix their cars. I still fix my wife's car, and like we've never known a car repair bill. And then
Hmm.
actually since getting this job, we've actually done like paid people to fix the car, and it's like whoa, because we weren't used to that.
Yeah.
But I came out of that kind of world and worked my way through college, and I went through the transition of textbooks on the desk, no cell phones allowed, no laptops allowed, to by the time I graduated, textbooks are mandatory.
Hmm.
Smartphones are often used in class for taking notes of the chalkboard. And so I saw that whole transition. I graduated with a lot of like Gen Z people, so it was just
Hmm.
really but also a blessing because I got to see kind of the whole thing change. The way that the job market changed just in 2019, there was, you did one at the beginning of the year about what's changed. I can't find it on my list here. What's
Oh, that's
changed
okay.
in 2019, and there was a whole
Hmm.
new resume style, like the functional resume,
Oh, okay. Yep.
and that
Yeah.
took me by surprise. But just knowing, having that information helped. So I'll talk a little bit about the psychological, the woo woo.
Yeah.
When you don't give yourself permission, right? When you hold yourself back and you say, "Oh, this isn't my world. This doesn't belong to me," and I know you talk about imposter syndrome and all this stuff. I mean, that is what held you back. And um, setting
Hmm.
intention,
Yeah, all
yeah,
those things that you're naming, and the thing is, we have a tendency to kind of label those things as being a little bit woo woo or out there,
yeah,
but it's really just life. It
yes,
is really what people are hungry for, and it's what we all deal with. And so I do make a point to talk in equal measure about those aspects of life and of our careers on the show because I could sit here all day and just say I do career coaching, but really I do life coaching. It's a form of life
yes,
coaching. It really is. I consider myself to be a life coach. And so I intentionally have a lot of those topics because, and I'm sure you can relate to this. If I had to boil it down, to one issue that everybody has most predominantly, it's a lack of confidence. It's not their resume.
yeah,
It's not their LinkedIn. It's not their, job search knowledge and strategies. Yes, all that stuff is very helpful and you should know it, but it's a lack of confidence. That is the number one thing that holds people back. And that whether you have that confidence or don't comes from a lot of what you're sharing, your life story, your history, your childhood, all, your whole worldview, all of those things roll up into you and make you one person. And that shapes your view of yourself and your career and your choices. And so I think this is really great for you to kind of share, all the setbacks and the, maybe disadvantages in your childhood and things that you maybe have experienced because those shape you as a person. And then they shape your
right.
career and your choices and your confidence. So,
And that's the funny thing is that nobody else sees
yeah,
that. That's what we see about ourselves, but people see what you
yeah,
present.
yeah, yeah,
In
absolutely.
in 2018, you stopped doing the resume only program, like because you saw that people weren't getting the results. They come for the resume, to get the
Hmm.
interview, and then they weren't getting the job. And that was exactly my experience. When I came to you, it was for a particular job. I got the interview, right? And then I didn't get the job. Then there was another similar situation. I got another interview, and this one's funny. So this may have been the second or third time I came to you, and I think we even practiced a little bit, a little role playing. We were neighbors at the time, so it was easy to come and see you in person. And I got there was a phone interview, a screening, then with the recruiter. Then there was another screening with the hiring manager. Then I think there was another screening with a little more technical. Okay, come on in for the interview. And I think, okay, I got this, right? I go in the interview, and there were three waves of two engineers each. It took half a day. I basically had to take a day off of work, or I left work like at noon, and my boss sees me going out and on the phone and stuff like that. And so, I think a lot of that stuff was counting against me at my job. I drove from Chantilly all the way down to Tyson's, which is like, it was the new Tyson's. And so they were constructing that metro station, and, it was just this massive, pain to get there, and I parked, and took, another 4 hours to do this thing. And then I get out, and it's rush hour. The guy tells me before I leave the interview, the hiring manager says, "Oh, that's really good. We're going to put you on simmer." I'm like, simmer? What is that? And even the recruiter was like, simmer? What does that mean? Like, I asked him later, like, what's going on with this job? And, and it was just like, man, and it was $12.50 just for parking. It was like, what? And I had to drive from, you know, basically from DC all the way back out to close to where you live during rush hour. And I was like, man, I just wasted my whole day. But later I realized, well, I learned a lot. For example, the job I was applying for wasn't exactly the job that I thought it was. Like the word procedure, in my resume I have that I do procedures. Their word for procedure is completely different. It was like their word for procedure is a program that you write for some spacecraft functions, where I was writing test procedures for some wiring stuff. So it was a completely different thing. And I think at that point I was frustrated, and I didn't really want to apply for jobs anymore. And then maybe a few months later, I met with you, and we were talking about credentials, and you said something about, I actually wrote this down. I wrote down, Lorraine collects suffixes and titles after name. So you had said something about that there's never like a problem having too many credentials. Like get
That's
extra
yes, I
permits,
do believe that.
yeah. So I said, okay, you know what? And one of the things I did was I got a second engineering degree, which the first engineering degree was very similar to this other one. It was just a few more classes, and there was a certificate that goes with it, and that certificate was what would have helped me get that last job. And so I went through that process. It took a few more years, and okay, this is where it gets fun. So at one point I had like 4 job offers at the same time, and they were coming in. One of them was in Ohio, and it was for $120,000 a year job. And my wife and I were like, oh man, I mean, I kind of have to do it, right? But I ended up not doing it. I'm glad I didn't. Job offers kept coming in. I got one from Northrop Grumman, right there by the airport. I got another one from a company in Maryland that serves NASA, and that company liked me for that certificate. The one in Northrop Grumman liked me because I had that second degree, because the first degree was astronautical engineering, which is kind of niche. So I said, well, it's only a few more classes for electrical engineering. Well, boom, that's way more marketable. And the certificate was a spacecraft certificate, very niche. But once again, it was just a few more classes, and the company in Maryland liked it. And ironically, the company in Tyson's called me right after I got the job, and I was kind of like, sorry, it felt good. But
Yeah,
here's something
good for
here's something
you.
funny. You in one of your podcasts, you have one about getting more, how to get more money, and I was playing these jobs off of each other at one point, and I'm not trying to say that to be like a jerk, but hey, I just got this other offer, I had to make up my mind, and so I've never been in that situation before. It felt really good, and
Good.
finally I took a position at NASA. It was a different one. than the one that I was originally offered with that certificate. And I started work the same day that my son was born, the same day.
Wow.
And I actually told them, because when I was trying to figure out which company to choose, I would drop that, hey, I have a baby coming. I'm going to have to take leave. Oh, no, don't worry. We have great leave. Yeah, it's fine. You can go negative on the leave and make it up later. So, I mean, I was really upfront with it. And, hey, guess what? I have the baby, so I need to take leave.
Like right
So
now.
right now,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So and it worked out. I was actually able to do some work in the hospital. I mean, I wasn't the one who had to give birth, so but I was there.
Right.
I
Yeah.
had to,
Right.
yeah, yeah. But I was still needed. I still had a lot of responsibilities. My wife stayed in the hospital. My son was premature, so I had this routine of like, get up in the morning, go to the hospital, go to work, come back to the hospital, go home, feed the cat. Go back to the hospital, see my wife. It was crazy. My grandma got sick. Actually, she got to meet the baby like a few months before she passed. So, or no, a few weeks before she passed. So that was like
Good.
kind of another
Good.
miracle. Yeah. But it was
Good.
just like, wow, like everything just came together at once. I mean, that's when I want to talk about the woo-woo stuff. I mean, it gets really like, I could get really esoteric with it. I mean, uh,
Oh, I
I
do
pray,
too. Yeah.
oh man, I pray
Yeah.
every day.
It's a, yes, good for
I
you.
think it helps. I
Go
mean,
ahead.
I don't know. I think it helps. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, it does. No, I think that I think all of that is important. I think we overlook that, and that's really the heart of your message, I think, and why I wanted to bring you on this show because it really takes a balance between looking at the bigger picture and looking at the whole self and then also looking at the tactical kind of day-to-day things, blending kind of the spiritual and the practical. And that's what this show really is all about. And I think that's a big reason, I would guess, at least, as to why you've been successful and you've had these multiple job offers and now you have a great position with NASA and everything. I mean, you really look at, you don't compartmentalize it. You look at the whole journey and the whole self. And not only that, but a lot of people will come across my podcast or another, and they'll listen, and that sounds good. Yeah, I should totally do that. And then they forget about it and they go on, right? But you didn't do
Hmm.
that. You actually got full on engaged in my work and applied it in your life and applied the teaching so much that you, like other people, are actually telling me back what I said, which I really love when clients do. I
Oh
love
yeah,
to hear that because it means you're living it. You didn't just go, oh yeah, that's a good show, or yeah, that's probably good advice, and then go on with your day. You actually put it
there
into
was.
action and you live it. And it's not just about me and my advice. It's whatever
Mhm.
you want to absorb and listen to. But you have to take action on it. So I think that's a big reason for you in being successful is that you're all in. You're not just listening surface level. You're actually thinking, how can I apply this to my career? And that's where the results come. 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And the psychological, emotional, spiritual stuff, it's weird because the
Hmm.
technical stuff, it's the stuff that seems obvious, but it's
Right.
not necessarily the easiest to apply. The spiritual,
Hmm.
emotional stuff, you can kind of get started right away. Like, let's say someone doesn't even have their first degree and they're trying to get a good job. Some of the more like esoteric kind of things you can apply almost right away. And I remember, see, I
Hmm.
was so desperate that I was pretty much willing to accept anything at the time, at one point. And so all this stuff that I would have normally like rolled my eyes at, I was like, well, maybe she's right. Maybe I'll try it. Vision boards, okay. And I like started. I started like doing the Google image search for my vision board, and I didn't even have a chance to like paste it together. Like things just started happening before I even had a chance. I was like, oh, maybe there's something to this. So
Yeah.
you know, I talked about I talked about gratitude will accelerate your career. Number 43. That's my
I
favorite
know you
one.
like that one.
That
Yeah.
one is so
Yeah.
powerful because it affects so many other parts of your life. Like for
Yes.
example, you've probably heard the expression that there's no atheist in the foxhole, and like when people are desperate, they'll pray, but I don't know how many people
Oh.
pray for the things that they're actually happy for, that they're actually grateful for. And so when I started doing that, I found myself doing it every day. Then things started falling into place. And maybe it's a little bit like exercising. Lifting weights. If you lift weights every day, you're gonna get strong. It's not like you're not trying to just do it as one huge achievement. It just becomes a routine, and things just start to come together. One
Mm-hmm.
last thing here. We have one
Hmm.
on my list. Let's see. It was like how to be successful in your job. I think that was number 55. How to
Okay.
how to be
Okay.
successful in your new job. And I started
Yeah.
listening to that right. That one came out right when I started my job. And boom, I started being more successful. So I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Because I got this job as a contractor. Within a few months, I got hired as a permanent federal employee.
Fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
I'll
Again,
tell you,
it's applying that knowledge. Yeah. Go ahead.
one more esoteric. Like, so when you become a federal employee, you take an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, all that stuff. It was like a religious experience. It was like the angels were like, oh, like it was crazy. So, like all that stuff, like, wow, it's real. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I love this. I love your story. So what are you most proud of in your career? When you look back on, and then I know you're still kind of early-ish career. You're around my age. Actually, you're younger than me.
Both over the same age?
So, I'm pushing 40.
Okay. Yeah, okay, you're a little
Getting
older.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a few years. But no, so you still have a lot of career ahead of you, but what are you most proud of so far?
Whew. Yeah, I think what you said, there's so much more ahead of me. So I don't want to start
Mhm.
taking victory laps, but I would say that the I get it a lot from family and friends because people who never expected me to succeed at all. Like I was not the one to have any kind of
Oh no.
achievements, and I started seeing like I did post my government picture on Facebook, and like people I don't post anything on Facebook, and every few months I go on, and like people from the hood were like, "Yo, what's up?" So I mean, going from that, the kind of stuff like I used to have problems with. Um, Off and on, right? Like, okay, I think we all kind of like dabble with some type of substance. Most people have a drink once in a while. Some people
Sure.
do other stuff. And, you know, it's easy for that kind of thing to become a problem. I think a lot of people underestimate how powerful like addictions can be.
Hmm.
And, going from somebody who was doing things that were not healthy and doing things that were not legal to being somebody who's successful and legal and healthy is like, I mean, it's a huge transformation. It's a career, it's a complete transformation, life
Yeah.
transformation. And
Yeah.
and just even looking back is just kind of unbelievable. I mean, even when I first
Yeah.
started meeting with you, you might have even noticed I had this element of like um kind of like no responsibility, like denial, like not
Mm.
not no accountability. Like I couldn't just take responsibility for, oh, my failures are because of my decisions, my lifestyle, all this other things. And you know taking some responsibility for your life. I mean, what is it that I can do to be better and apply that. And so there's definitely
Hmm.
a sense of like, wow, I've made a huge leap
You
in a
have.
pretty short period of time after all the like a long 14-year struggle, and then within a short time frame, a few years, massive change. But I don't want to think it's done yet.
Yeah, no,
you know
absolutely not. That's what I'm saying. You still have so much ahead of you, and look at the transformation that you've already made, one that some people never make, or spend their whole life trying to make and never do. So, well, so one final question: what advice would you, so as somebody who is on the other side and has made that transformation, what advice would you give to somebody who is job searching or wanting to change careers right now and kind of at the beginning of that process and maybe feeling a lack of self-confidence or feeling overwhelmed, and especially now in the pandemic feeling like it's not possible, having gone through that yourself, what advice would you give to somebody right now listening?
well,
No
I gave a
pressure.
list of I did give a list of podcasts, but maybe we can write that in the description because there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff about mindset. There's a lot of stuff about and setting intentions. And actually, I made a little list for what
sure.
you would give to other people. Set intention. I put that as the first thing. Set your intention. A lot of times it's a job you think you want, but you really have to think, what do you actually want? Because you can go through a list of job descriptions and say, oh, I could do that. Ah, I can take, that would work. I mean, it's better than living in a box on the side of the road, I can do
Yep.
that, but you should think, what do you really want? What do you want out of your job? What do you want out of your life? So I put set intention. Um, I also, here's just some like tricks of the trade. Read job descriptions from the bottom up because a lot of times the juicy
Hmm.
info is at the bottom.
Okay.
Tailor resume to job. So you and I, we would meet many times about like, I'd have like maybe 3 or 4 resumes for kind of 3 or 4 different types of jobs. And then each one we'd make a little change here, a little change there, maybe highlight certain aspects. So I mentioned I have all this technical experience, mechanic stuff that doesn't apply to a software job, but a mechanic engineering job, they might say, oh, well, maybe knowing how to do some car stuff, like, even if it's not applicable to the job, maybe a little background of some trade stuff might be valuable. So there's certain things that matter more than others that you would bring to the forefront. I also put quit drugs and alcohol. So I know a lot of people are prescribed maybe something for your back, or maybe I guess antidepressants and stuff like that is different. Like you need to talk to your doctor about that. But like if you're taking something for your knee or for your back, maybe you can see if you can reduce that. I would also say that like alcohol, even though there's nothing wrong with having a drink, some people can do it. I don't drink at all. I haven't had a drink in over 3 years. But it's not, even if you don't have a problem with alcohol, I would still suggest that it's not ideal for trying to make like a massive transformation. If you're unemployed, that's unemployment is actually a beautiful time where you can figure out what the next step is. And the
Yes.
government's paying you to get your
To
life
do
together,
that.
basically. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
easy to take a check. And actually, right now, there's a lot of people that are talking about, like in government, they're like, in politics, there's all this talk about basic income. I don't think that's. I shouldn't say what my opinion is. Even if they
No,
do
that's okay.
that,
I agree with you. I don't think it's a good idea either.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Opinions are allowed.
I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
The whole theory is that if people are getting these checks that they can get their life together. I just know that most people won't. But I do think
Hmm.
that, like for example, when I was unemployed and I was getting a check, um, it's so easy to just fall into this like mundane life of just taking this check. And each time that I had been unemployed, I kind of afterwards realized that, man, I really wasted a lot of good time. Like there was a lot that I could have done in that time that I didn't,
Yeah.
and each time it was short, but I would suggest that if you are unemployed, probably what you need is a routine. What you don't need is alcohol or drugs because, if you have a job and you get home from work at 6 and you make dinner and then you have a glass of wine, well, that's one glass of wine. If you're unemployed, you can start drinking at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., like,
Right.
so it's easy for people to start to just generate bad habits. And I would just say, just like as a bodybuilder or a anybody who's a model, right, wouldn't suggest like having like a lot of alcohol because even if yes technically you can make it work, it's not ideal. Like if they listen to interviews from different athletes, they have very strict diets, and athletes, they do party and stuff like that, but they usually do that after they've won. you know so yeah, they don't do that while they're training for the marathon or for the gold medal. They do that after they win. So and for me, the journey
Yeah.
lasts forever, so I don't know if I'm ever going to have another drink. But I would just suggest for people, like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, but just remember that maybe that's not ideal. Maybe instead of a drink, you should just be working on your skills, studying some coding. That was one of the things that I did while I was lost, is like try to learn some skills, try to work on some how do I code? I'm not a programmer, but there's so many jobs in programming. Maybe I should give it a shot, So learning how to code.
Mm-hmm.
I also put on my list exercise, volunteer, explore habits, learn and practice new skills.
Oh, I
Um,
love that. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I love
and
what
I
you're
think
saying about the
exercise is.
habits.
Oh,
Hmm.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
You go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to chime in. I'm sorry and say I love what you're saying about the small habits because it is those small, seemingly harmless habits that are actually, I think, the most dangerous because they creep up on you really
Yep.
slowly, and you think, oh, it's not that much time, or it's only one glass, or oh, I'm just going to only get on Facebook for like 10 minutes, and then we
Yes.
keep doing it because it's permissible. We've made it permissible to ourselves to do those things, so the door is open, and then it slowly grows and grows and grows, and you don't notice it because you've given yourself permission to do it. And so it seems harmless. And then we always say, oh, I can stop anytime. I can stop anytime, except that you can't. Right?
Hmm.
Except that when you go to stop, then it's a lot harder than you think. So then
Oh
you
yeah.
don't want to stop because then you don't want to face the fact that you can't stop. So you just dig in your heels deeper,
Right.
right? This is how it works. So this is why I totally agree with you, Alex, that small habits are the most dangerous sometimes. Those are the ones that we really have to investigate because they actually hold us back the most because we don't pay attention to them. And we have no idea how much they add up and impact our life. Sorry, I went on a soapbox. You got me going. I'm such a
Oh, I
really
was. You had to.
big,
I'm glad you
yeah,
stopped
big.
me because I was going off on a soapbox myself.
No, no, that's
Um,
okay. I'm
but
such a
that's
big proponent
exactly.
of
Yeah, that's
habits. Yeah.
exactly what happened to me. Is like a simple habit just grew out of proportion, and it was a habit that I had done managed for years and years, mostly because I kept myself busy. That thing was never a huge part of my life. But when you're unemployed, you're at home, you're lonely, you're
Hmm.
depressed. I was depressed for other reasons, and not just losing my job. And that stuff just gets out of control.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
it was a big thing. It required a huge event to actually shake me out of that. And
Yeah.
habits go both ways. There's actually positive habits. So I put exercise, volunteer, explore habits, learn and practice new skills. Exercise, like I told myself when I was unemployed and the last time I was unemployed, and also related, I wasn't really unemployed. I was underemployed because I did get an internship, but it wasn't like full time. And I'm like, at the time
Hmm.
I was 30 and I was actually paid well for an internship, but it was like part time, and I just didn't. It wasn't good for the self esteem. I mean, we basically we're relying on my wife's salary, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I know this shouldn't be the case, but as a man, like you are worthless if you don't make some
There's
money.
pressure. Sure.
Oh
Yeah. No,
yeah,
my
I mean,
husband
but
would agree. He feels that pressure. Yeah.
yeah, and I think the pressure's warranted. I mean, we can't make babies, so we got to make something. Might as well make some money. Um, so,
Yeah. So
I
we got to
mean,
make up for it somehow. At least we can bring home the bacon, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well,
So one of the things was like, okay, I'm going to wake up early and run every day. And I think that worked maybe 2 days. And finally, I couldn't keep to that. What I kept to as a habit was I set up a pull up bar, the thing that clips to your doorway. And I just do some pull ups every day, like minimum 5 pull ups a day. Even if I'm an absolute loser, I can at least do 5 pull ups. And I kept telling myself, don't be a loser. Don't be a loser. And I was
you
like, oh my God.
you sound like me because I also work out now on a regular basis. I worked out just this morning and I do not need to lose weight. I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm very slim naturally, but I do it anyway. And I swear I say the same thing. I say, Lorraine, don't be a loser and sleep in. Don't do it. Like
Right.
I honestly do. I'm like, get up. You have the time. Don't lie to yourself, right?
Right.
That's so funny. So,
I mean, you
perfect.
give
Well, this has
yourself a
been a
minimum.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. No, this has been a wonderful conversation, Alex. I really, really appreciate your time and your candidness to share your story. And I really value you as a client and somebody in my network. So I'm just so thrilled that you wanted to come on and share your story because you've been in my network for years now. And I think it just made sense. You've been impacted by this show and by the coaching and by your own choices and your own action and determination. And I just think you have a great story. So thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, so we'll wrap things up here, guys. But if you want to become a success story like Alex, and you want to end up being on the show, and you want the kind of transformation that he has got, I would love to help you get there. It's a partnership, right? It's a little bit me, but it's a lot you as well. You have to step up and take action and make the commitment and do the work. And I'm happy to help you get there. So you can learn more about me at careeruprising.com. You can also find this show there. I have a page dedicated to the podcast there. So you can listen to some of the episodes that Alex was kind enough to reference. And I would love for you to have a call with me and see if this is something that would work for you as well. So I will be back in probably 2 weeks. I'll have a couple more episodes out for March. But thanks again, Alex. This was wonderful. And I know it's going to inspire a lot of people. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.